Have you ever opened a door you were told to leave shut? It was supposed to be a quiet weekend escape. Just me, my girlfriend, and a cozy old farmhouse tucked in the woods. But something was wrong the moment we stepped inside. The air felt still, like the house was waiting. And then the notes started appearing, handwritten, short, almost like warnings. I never expected to hear breathing from behind a sealed door. And I never expected to read what the final note said. What happens when a place decides who stays and who doesn't? Would you ignore the rules and try opening that door? Or is there a reason some doors are meant to stay closed? Forever. Tonight, we're diving into true Airbnb horror stories that actually happened. So stick close and keep watching till the end to find out what happened, before it was too late. But before we start, don't forget to hit subscribe or follow so you'll never miss our next terrifying episode. If you're enjoying our content, please give us a like, drop a comment, and share this video to help us reach 500 likes. Also, follow us on our social media platforms for the latest updates. Thank you all for being part of this journey with me. And now, let's dive into the darkness. Together. This happened just 3 months ago, and I still wake up some nights convinced I see something standing in the corners of my bedroom. Just barely out of focus. Always still. Always waiting. It was meant to be a simple couple's weekend getaway. My girlfriend, Emily, and I had been working ourselves to death. Long hours, city stress, barely talking without a screen between us. We thought a quiet escape might help us breathe again. So we booked a stylish old farmhouse just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. It seemed perfect, peaceful, tucked in the woods, no cell service, no distractions, just trees, birdsong, and that kind of eerie silence you only get when the nearest neighbor is over a mile away. The listing made it look like something out of a magazine, rustic, cozy, and full of charm. It had original wood floors, exposed ceiling beams, antique fixtures, and even a clawfoot tub in a candlelit bathroom. It felt like a storybook, one that lured you in with its warmth before turning the page into something darker. The host, Rachel, messaged us the day before check-in. Her message was polite, but one line caught our attention. Key is under the rabbit statue on the porch. Please do not open the upstairs hallway closet. It's sealed shut for safety reasons. That phrasing, sealed shut, struck us as strange. We joked about it on the drive, called it the ghost closet, and made bets about what was inside. Mold, a broken staircase, a portal to hell? The banter made it easier to laugh off how remote this place really was. We arrived right at sunset. The gravel road twisted through tall pines before finally opening up to a clearing where the house stood. Isolated, beautiful, a little too quiet. The trees cast long shadows across the porch. I remember the way the sunlight flared in the back window as if the house were swallowing it whole. Rachel hadn't lied. It was gorgeous. Better than the pictures. We found the rabbit statue, lifted it, and retrieved an old brass key from beneath its base. The inside of the house smelled like old wood, lavender, and something else. Something faint and metallic that we couldn't place. Rachel had left a welcome note on the kitchen table along with a bottle of red wine and 2 glasses. It all felt sweet. Thoughtful. Safe. The first night was exactly what we wanted. We made pasta, played cards by the fire, and curled up on the couch watching a mindless show. We even forgot about the closet. When the wind picked up outside, the house creaked in all the usual ways an old place does. We weren't bothered. Not yet. The second night is when things began to turn. We'd spent most of the day in Asheville, checking out art galleries, eating pastries, wandering through little local shops. We came back just after 7 p.m., just as the last light was disappearing behind the trees. The moment we stepped through the front door, we both paused. Something in the air had changed. The house felt colder, not temperature-wise, but in its presence. Like whatever life had been in it the day before was now gone, replaced with stillness. The comforting creaks were gone too. Even the silence had a different tone, heavier, like it was pushing inward. Right away, I noticed one of our bags had moved. Nothing major, just not where we left it. Closer to the stairs. Slightly angled, like someone had walked past and brushed it with their foot. The bedroom door, which we had definitely closed before leaving, now stood ajar. Only by a few inches, but enough to show the darkness beyond. We tried to dismiss it. Maybe we forgot. Maybe there was a draft. Then Emily found the note. It was on the nightstand, placed neatly beside her book, folded precisely. Inside, a single word written in dark, smudged pencil. 2. We stared at it for a long time. No punctuation, no explanation. I checked the doors, the windows, even the attic. Everything was locked. Nothing seemed broken or out of place. No signs of forced entry. It made less sense the more we tried to explain it. We tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. That night, we locked our bedroom door. We even wedged a chair under the handle. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of soft, deliberate footsteps. They were coming from above us. But there was no second story. Not really. Just the hallway upstairs, the one with the sealed closet. We had joked about it. But now we weren't laughing. The steps moved slowly, like someone pacing, back and forth. I didn't want to wake Emily, but I saw her eyes open already, staring at the ceiling. We didn't speak. We just listened, counting the steps. 7 in one direction, 7 back. After 10 minutes of this, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the flashlight and crept into the hallway. Each step on the staircase groaned, though the house was otherwise silent. The upstairs hall was narrower than I remembered. The flashlight beam flickered. I felt cold air draft from the sealed closet like it was breathing out. I approached slowly. There was something about the door, something that hadn't been there before. Scratches. Long, vertical, claw-like marks that hadn't been on the wood yesterday. They trailed from the doorknob down to the base. Some had splinters peeling outward. I leaned in, against all better judgment, and pressed my ear to the wood. Inside, I heard someone breathing. Not loud, not raspy. Just slow, quiet, like someone trying not to be heard. I held my breath, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. That maybe it was just an echo, just my own heartbeat. But I knew it wasn't. I backed down the stairs, heart pounding, and returned to the room. Emily didn't ask. She saw the look on my face and turned toward the wall, pulling the blanket up to her neck. We lay there in silence, not sleeping, just waiting for something else to happen. We packed before the sun was up. I didn't even want coffee. I just wanted distance. Emily was quiet, moving automatically. We didn't talk about the footsteps, or the closet. As I loaded the last suitcase into the car, Emily came out holding something in her hand. Her face was pale. She held up another folded piece of paper. This one smaller, as if meant to be hidden. It had been tucked under her pillow. Inside it said, "Only one leaves." That was it. No signature. Just those words, scrawled in the same jagged pencil. Neither of us spoke. We got in the car and drove. Rachel texted us a few days later, asking how our stay went. I told her what we experienced. The notes, the footsteps, the breathing behind the closet door. Her reply was chilling in its flatness. "That's strange. I've never had complaints before." We reported it to Airbnb. Their official reply was that they'd look into it. They didn't. I looked up the address later, found a newspaper archive buried in a local blog. In 1958, the property was a halfway house for displaced children. 2 siblings were housed there temporarily. One of them, Jacob, was found dead in a sealed hallway closet. The other, Daniel, was never located. Sometimes I wonder if Daniel ever really left. I think about that closet almost every night. I think about the scratches on the wood, about the breathing, about the notes. And I still wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed just one more night, or if we had tried to open that door, and that. About 2 weeks ago, I booked a cheap Airbnb room in another country. I was traveling solo for a concert, just staying one night, so I wasn't expecting luxury. Just a bed and a roof. The listing looked old but charming, and the reviews were weirdly neutral, like people didn't say much either way. I figured it would be fine. The trip didn't exactly start great. My data roaming failed completely the moment I landed. No GPS, no browser, no messages. I had to duck into a local cafe to connect to Wi-Fi and manually map my walking route from screenshots. I triple-checked directions, stepped out into the unfamiliar city, and found the place right on time. At least, I thought I did. The building had one faded brass doorbell. I pressed it, waited, pressed it again. Nothing. 5 minutes passed. Still no response. That's when I noticed a mail slot on the door. Curious and getting impatient, I bent down and peeked through. What I saw made my stomach turn. The entrance beyond the door looked like an abandoned barn. The floor was covered in dust. An old, sagging couch sat directly across from the door, half swallowed by shadows. Furniture was draped in yellowing white sheets. Cobwebs clung to the corners. This wasn't just rustic. It looked like no one had lived here in years. Just as I was beginning to wonder if I had the wrong address, a man appeared. He was approaching from down the street, walking slowly, heavily, like his limbs were dragging weight behind them. He looked ancient. Filthy clothes, greasy gray hair, skin so sallow it seemed to hang. As he reached the door, I asked hesitantly, "Do you know where the Airbnb is?" He mumbled something. I couldn't make it out, but I thought I caught a yes. So I asked, "Are you Tim, the host?" He nodded and said, "Yeah," then unlocked the door and led me inside. The smell hit first. Dust, cigarettes, mold, maybe something worse. The centerpiece of the foyer was a massive wooden staircase, warped and groaning under its own age. He coughed violently as he moved, his breath wheezing like broken machinery. We climbed the stairs to the second floor, which was somehow even worse. More cloth-draped furniture, dark hallways, a heavy curtain drawn across one corner of the landing, hiding something I didn't want to know about. He said nothing as we walked past it. The hallway to my room was terrifying in its own right. Cracks split the walls. Crooked religious paintings hung alongside iron crosses, all dusty and tilted. It honestly looked like a movie set for a demon possession flick. I tried to convince myself I was overreacting. I was goth, after all. Old houses, vintage horror decor. Those things didn't usually scare me. But this was different. Everything felt abandoned, yet watched at the same time. He showed me the bathroom, and I nearly gagged. A gaping hole was rotted into the wall by the tub, exposing dark pipes. The tiles were filthy. The mirror was cracked. There were no working locks on the bathroom or my room. My bedroom was okay, just okay. The bed looked tolerable, but the shelves were packed with creepy, dust-covered dolls staring down with glassy, cracked eyes. I asked if there was Wi-Fi. He shook his head. Nope, don't got that. That crushed me. No internet meant no communication, no help, no escape route. I asked what time checkout was. He just said, "Doesn't matter." Then he turned and dragged himself up another staircase, this one vanishing into pitch-black darkness. I watched until he disappeared. That was when I decided, I'm not staying here. I changed quickly, charged my phone, and prepared for the concert. As I went to the bathroom, I noticed something that chilled me more than anything so far. There were dozens of half-used toiletries just lying around. Toothbrushes, soap, hairbrushes, even a single false eyelash on the counter. Not arranged neatly like Airbnb hosts usually do. Just left there. Forgotten. Abandoned. These weren't there for guests. They were left behind. By someone. Before I left for the concert, I folded a small scrap of paper and slid it halfway under my bedroom door. I wanted to know if it moved, if someone came in while I was gone. My backpack was killing me, but I didn't trust leaving everything behind. As I crept downstairs, I heard the front door unlocking. My heart stopped. I froze mid-step. Another man entered. He looked normal, clean, mid-40s. He smiled and said, Hey, you must be the guest. I'm Tim. My blood ran cold. I forced a smile. Oh, hey. Yeah. I already met someone who said they were Tim. He looked confused for a split second, then shrugged it off like it didn't matter. We made brief small talk. I excused myself as fast as I could. At the concert, I was distracted. The band was amazing, but I couldn't stop thinking about the house, about the two Tims, about the hole in the wall, the missing locks, the curtain at the top of the stairs. I ended up crashing at a budget hostel after the show. Not exactly 5-star, but they had locks, a clean shower, Wi-Fi, actual human beings around. I finally got a little sleep. The next morning I had to return for my stuff. I hated the idea. My body tensed the closer I got. Out of twisted curiosity, I peeked through the mail slot again. The old man, the first Tim, was lying right there on the couch, snoring, mouth wide open. It was like he'd been sitting there all night. I moved slowly, quietly, trying not to wake him. I got to my room. The note was untouched. No one had entered. I grabbed everything and left without a sound. I don't know what was really going on in that house. I don't know who that old man was. I don't know how many people had stayed there before me, or if they'd left. I just know something felt wrong. And if you ask me, that place wasn't an Airbnb. It was a trap. Maybe nothing would have happened. Maybe I overreacted. But from the two Tims, to the dead-eyed dolls, to the front door that never really locked, I wasn't going to wait around and find out. I've traveled alone dozens of times. I love solo trips. But this one left a mark. And I'll never book a stay again without triple checking who I'm really staying with. A few weeks ago, I set out on a solo getaway, an escape from my usual routine. I'd booked a townhouse through a vacation rental site, nestled in a quiet rural town named Elmsbrook. The area was unfamiliar to me, but it bordered several wooded trails I was eager to hike. The drive took nearly 9 hours. By the time I rolled into Elmsbrook, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the sleepy streets. My rental was on a modest cul-de-sac lined with identical townhouses. When I pulled up, everything looked about as expected. Not brand new, but not falling apart either. I gathered my bags and approached the townhouse door, expecting a keypad or lockbox. However, I realized I hadn't received a code. I checked my inbox twice, and, growing slightly frustrated, sent a text to the host letting them know I'd arrived. I stood there for a few minutes, taking in the stillness of the street under the dim amber glow of a single street lamp. Then, from around the corner, a man appeared. Late 30s, clean-shaven, and dressed like a typical suburbanite. He smiled warmly and introduced himself as Theo, the host. He apologized for the missing code, saying he preferred to greet guests in person, just to make sure everything is all right. Odd, but not wildly alarming. He let me in, handed me the key, and casually mentioned he lived in the unit right next door if I needed anything. A bit more personal than I'd expected, but he didn't linger, just turned and left with a polite wave. I dropped my bags in the bedroom, did a quick tour of the place, and unpacked a few things. The inside was modest, clean, quiet, and sparsely furnished. I was tired, so I turned in early. The next morning I had a simple breakfast and headed out to a nearby trail, which wound through thick pine forests and rocky inclines. I hiked for 4 hours, enjoying the isolation. When I got back around 7 p.m., I noticed something strange. Nothing drastic, just subtle changes. My backpack had shifted positions slightly. The zipper I'd left halfway closed was now open. One of my socks was on the floor, even though I'd been sure I'd put all my laundry in the bag. No signs of forced entry. Nothing missing. But an uneasiness settled into my chest. I brushed it off as travel paranoia. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was just spooked being alone in a strange place. I microwaved a frozen pasta dish, settled on the couch, and watched videos on my phone. The evening passed without event. At around 11 p.m., I got ready for bed. The bedroom was located at the very end of the hallway, farthest from the front door. Unlike my apartment, which had a second story, this single-level unit made me feel oddly exposed. I couldn't shake the sense that someone, or something, could be just outside my room. Sleep didn't come easily. I drifted off for a few minutes at a time, only to jolt awake, heart racing. At one point, maybe an hour in, I was lying there, fully awake in the dark, when I heard it. A creak. Not random house settling or the wind. This was different. The soft, deliberate sound of a door opening, slow and cautious, as if someone didn't want to be heard. My breath caught. I sat upright, ears straining. Silence. I got up, padded barefoot to the door, and cracked it just enough to peer into the hallway. From where I stood, I could see the faint glow from the porch light and the front door hanging slightly ajar. My pulse surged. I shut my bedroom door as quietly as I could, turned the lock, and backed away. My phone was still on the nightstand. I grabbed it and dialed 911. Halfway through explaining the situation, I froze. A sound just outside the door. Another creak, slower this time. I looked down. Under the gap in the door, I could see it. A pair of feet, silhouetted in the low light. Someone was standing motionless just inches from me, separated only by a thin slab of wood. I held my breath. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Whoever it was eventually stepped away. Soft footfalls fading down the hallway. I remained silent, the operator still on the line, until officers arrived. The intruder was gone by the time they got there, but they confirmed my suspicions. Clear footprints on the hardwood floor, smudges on the doorframe, faint scratches on the inside of the lock, subtle, but undeniable. When I mentioned Theo, the host, I could see the officers quietly considering it, but there was no concrete evidence tying him to the break-in. The front door hadn't been forced open. It was unlocked, or perhaps never truly closed. The most disturbing part was what didn't happen. Nothing had been stolen. Nothing moved significantly. It was like someone was watching, waiting. They came not when I was out, but when I was inside. Alone. Vulnerable. I left the next morning. Canceled the rest of my trip. To this day, I wonder what might have happened if I'd fallen fully asleep. Or worse, if I'd opened that door. If you've made it to the end of this video, let me know in the comments which story creeped you out the most. And if you could survive only one of these stories, which one would it be? Also, drop "I made it" and mention our channel in the comments below. I want to know who my loyal followers are so I can give you a shout out in our next videos. And lastly, if you want to support AG Horrors and help us keep creating even more spine-chilling content, check out our Patreon or Ko-fi. Your support keeps the scares coming and means the world to us. Don't forget to like, share, and catch up on our previous episodes. And now, stay tuned for the next horror episode.